Hey guys, Cade Wilcox here, host of the Primitive Podcast. Thank you for listening as we take a deep dive into all things leadership. On today's episode with Alex Fairley from Amarillo. This is actually the second time Alex has been on the podcast. The first time was about 6 to 7 months ago, kind of right as COVID was starting to really impact our lives. And so I thought it'd be really great to have Alex back on and learn some things from him about his company's response to COVID and what he's learned about his own leadership. I also wanted to ask Alex onto the podcast again because he's chosen to involve himself in a couple of issues on a local level there in Amarillo that are really outside of, his normal day-to-day work. And I wanted to ask why and hear from him on his perspective of why a leader like him would involve himself in other things that really matter. So I hope you enjoy this episode. I always learn so much from Alex and appreciate his time. Thank you for joining the Primitive Podcast and sharing it with your friends. Take care.
When I was young, when I was 30 and 35, I just knew I was so smart and everything I thought of was the right answer. I just said, oh, that's a good idea. It's my idea. I'm sure it's good. Let's just go do that. And I went and did some stupid things. And I did some things that utterly failed. With time, failure brings you the humility that lets you say, all my ideas aren't good. So I have my experience to draw on, and you get experience however you get it. But the other thing, the main thing is I let time take its toll on my ideas.
So first of all, thank you for joining. I told you via email, you're our only two-time guest so far. And so it's really fun because the first time you were on was 6 to 7 months ago, and it was kind of right when COVID was hitting. And, like a lifetime of stuff has happened in the last 6 to 7 months. And so, what are some of the most significant leadership challenges you faced over the last 7 months? When you think of these last 7 months, what are some of the biggest challenges you faced as a leader?
Yeah, I would put that just kind of in a couple categories. One is it's a challenge to lead people that are fearful and aren't sure what's going to happen next and are discouraged and are tired. Our companies have had the good fortune of being successful. And when you have momentum and you're playing offense and you're winning, it's frankly easier to lead that group of people. But when something comes crashing in and their worlds have to change and their parents are sick and their kids can't go to school, that's a whole level, requires a whole nother level of leadership. So that's been a different challenge. We lead though by the same principles. They apply in good times and tough times. The same principles apply. You look after your folks and you take good care of them and you wake up every day thinking about them. I don't remember exactly what I said 6 months ago, but I'm sure I said that. The other challenge is just your clients, and your clients are in trouble. And they need help in ways that they've never needed your help before. And other vendors are, frankly, panicking about their own businesses. And, we just made a commitment in those times that we were going to wake up every day still being who we are, thinking about our clients and thinking about each other. And really, we just kept doing the same things. But it was definitely harder. You have to be more intentional. You have to spend more time. You do things you've never done before. Take care of people, kids, fly somebody to see their father before he died. We did some things that the times demanded, but principally, you lead in the same way in crisis as you do in good times.
Yeah, that's good. What are a few things you've learned about yourself, through these last 7 months? So both the things you talked about, doubling down on your people and caring for them and, leading them in the same way, but with intentionality. Same thing with your clients, doubling down on serving your clients and really, being there for them during, kind of their tough times. But what have you learned about yourself, throughout the last 7 months?
I think I would have said going into 7 months ago that, people who know me think I probably work harder than anyone in the company. My clients might say that. And one of the things I learned is there was more in that tank. Like, there was just more. And I think that's probably true of all people. Like in a crisis, I think I went at one point through a stretch of 40 some days, and I worked every day. There were no weekend, and there was a period of time in there that people and frankly most of our clients were in such crisis that you just kept working, and you just showed up the next day, and there just was a lot more in there. Like my runway, I thought I knew what it was, and it's just even a little bit longer. Now, not that you could go that pace forever without a break, but there was more in there. The other thing though that you find out in crisis, you find, if you're looking, you find some flaws. And there were some things that I probably don't want to go into though, that I just could do better. There were some things I get involved in that I don't need to be involved in. There are things that other people just can do better than I can. There are new ways to do things that pressure, kind of rises to the top, that just made us better. And so, frankly, besides knowing we were up to it and feeling like I was up to a difficult time, I also found out several ways that I just can be better. And some of that is doing more, some of that is doing less. But you find in the middle of the fire, like you find the impurities, if you will.
It's really good. How do you work? So you just talked about how you really learned that there's more in the tank, that you have this ability to kind of go deeper than you thought you could in terms of effort and, giving yourself to your company. How do you work? Like, do you have, this is super practical question, but I like this stuff, and I guess it's my podcast, so if I'm the only one that cares, I have that luxury. But do you have to be at your office, in y'all's office to work? Do you have a home office that you have perfectly set up? Do you have to get away to do your best work and travel away from the company, or what does that look like on a practical level?
Yeah, so we closed our offices in the beginning of March, even before Amarillo issued a stay-home order. About a week before, I just made the decision, not knowing what was going on, that we needed to be out in front of it. I felt like it was coming. There was a little work that we needed to do, so it gave us time to get in front. We were pretty ready, but so we did it early. But in our building here, we have a couple floors, and they're 15,000 square feet. So I needed to come to work, and I came to work every day. All my things are here. My computers are here. I'm just comfortable here because I could come. There was no one in the building. There was some days there were 4 or 5 people in the building, and so I came to work every day. I didn't. Some mornings I got up at 4 o'clock and I just put my clothes on and I came to the office. There was kind of some freedom, and it didn't matter how I looked. I wore shorts, and I just was in go work mode. So I came every day. I live 5 minutes from my office, and I kind of never, I'm not comfortable being at home working. Yeah. I just can't focus and concentrate at home. So I was here every day.
Yeah. So are you a big note taker in a journal or whiteboard guy, or is all your best work done in your head and then it's expressed through relationships internally or with clients, or is your work always on the phone with clients or employees and teammates? What does that work look like?
Yeah, so I'm not a huge note taker. In fact, it's probably a weakness. I should take more notes. One wall of my office is a whiteboard, and I use it sometimes, but probably not nearly like some people would or could. I tend to have a lot of things going, and I'm constantly going from one to the other. What I got to work more to do. So frankly, this is going to sound really disorganized, but it just is where I am. My emails and my texts and my phone calls, they become my go-to-do list. They are that's how my life is organized around those things. And some of them are more important, some are less, but I don't have another system. I don't take notes on another piece of paper. But I keep up with all of it. I don't let things, I file things when they're done. I keep that thing pretty tight. My best thinking time, I have to get away from it all. And honestly, I do that on my bike. I've ridden my bike this year about 300 hours, which probably equates to about 6,000 miles. And on my bike, the phone is off. And my best thinking, all my best ideas, I don't know if it's because there's adrenaline going when you're exercising, but all my thinking, all my best ideas, they all come in my quiet time on my bike. And so that might be more than you wanted, but that's my.
No, it's perfect. I mean, I think a lot of, I can't say a lot of leaders. I think about it a lot, the practice of work, like how you stay organized and how you organize your goals and objectives. And it's easy to overthink it, right? And yeah, everyone has their own model and what works for them. So no, that stuff's really fascinating. There's a publication called Life Hacker, and they have this whole series on how I work, and they interview people, and it's like, what is your computer, and like, what's your to-do list thing? And so I just find it completely fascinating, and you can always learn from people. Why have you been successful? Like when you think about your success, what I know of you, you're a successful husband, you're a successful father, you're a successful business owner. We'll get more into some other things in a little bit, but you've engaged yourself on some community level issues. You've been successful there. So, I know this could sound really egotistical and arrogant, but I asked the question. And so, why do you think you've been successful? Has it been luck? Has it been hard work? Have you been in the right place at the right time? I mean, like, what is it that you think is attributed to your success?
I'll do the easy things first. There's some luck. I don't think that's why anyone's successful, because sometimes there's good luck, sometimes there's bad luck. But so sometimes you have some good luck. But I tell you what it is. I think mostly, and the reason I don't feel like I'm bragging is because I think this is true of all people, and I've been very deliberate in my professional and my personal life to focus on this. I think that every human is amazing at a few things. We raised our kids looking for their gifts. Our very first kid had a physical gift, and it became utterly obvious to the world without us looking or trying that he was a world-class athlete. And I looked at that as a parent and realized our younger kids were all going to be asked, do you ride bikes like your older brother? He was known all over the world as a cyclist. And I began focusing on, I felt all my kids had special gifts, and we as parents, we needed to help them find them. And I think, Kate, I think your kids have. I think every human is amazing at a few things, but here's really the more important thing of that. We are average to bad at everything else. And as a leader, I am looking always for my people to further refine and understand the shape of peg that they are. Because when we get those people in that as close as we can exact hole, and that peg fits, that person is happy and they're successful and they perform incredibly. And so I basically have ascertained the few things I'm good at, and it's really just a few, literally 2 or 3. And I've come to this conclusion. Everything else I'm not very good at. And I have spent my professional life focusing my time on doing the things I'm good at and letting other people do the things I'm not good at that they are good at. Mm. And that becomes the makeup of a team. Johnny does what he's amazing at better than I could, so I let him do it, and he's happy doing it. I started with, he's not doing what I'm good at because he would fail at it, and Sally's the same thing. But I would say of all the things, I do have some gifts. You have gifts. Everyone has gifts. If you can find them and spend your time doing those things, I think people would all be successful. If you're the most amazing teacher on the planet, then fine, let's figure it out and be an amazing teacher. I think the only sad thing about that is our society ranks things that are important. Like, we don't think teachers as important as guys who can make money, which I utterly disagree with. So our best people don't go teach because we don't pay them to teach. But people are amazing, and if they can figure out what they're good at and then do that, everyone, I think, can be successful in their version of success.
Yeah, that's really good. Thanks for sharing that. When it comes to evaluating new opportunities for you to express your gifts in, whether it's business or nonprofit, whatever it is, how do you how do you decide or evaluate whether you should or you shouldn't pursue something?
uh, there's some painful history behind that answer. So, as you work and live life and be in business and raise kids and do all the things, whatever you do, you get more experienced. And as life goes on, you just make those decisions better. But I would say one of the main things is when I was young, when I was 30 and 35, I just knew I was so smart and everything I thought of was the right answer. And I just said, oh, that's a good idea. It's my idea. I'm sure it's a good idea. Let's just go do that. And I went and did some stupid things. And I did some things that utterly failed. With time, failure brings you the humility that lets you say, all my ideas aren't good. And the main thing, so I have my experience to draw on, and you get experience however you get it. But the other thing, the main thing is I let time take its toll on my ideas. I give my ideas time. Some big complicated ideas, it may be 9 months. Some other things, it might be 3 days. And I let time it just sifts my ideas. And then I go and I get input. But I think those are the reasons, why we now our ratio of picking things that work well, have gone up. I'm not in such a rush. I'm more experienced, and I hopefully have the humility to know that I can come up with kind of some bad ideas that I need to let go of.
Is it just like you talk about giving it space to kind of, think through and really evaluate? Like, is there anything you do practically there, or is it literally you think on it and you give it mental space and you give it physical time, right? Like, that 9 months you mentioned, or is there like, I'm not good at that is why I'm asking, because when at the moment I have an idea, I'm like, oh, I got to act on that. That's the best thing I've ever thought of. You just said the opposite, right? You have an idea and then you kind of sit on it for a while. Yeah. What does that look like?
So 2 things. The only practical thing that I do is on things that I think I could use some input on, I go get input. And I specifically look for people that I think will be negative or against it, so that if I can't overcome those things, like I'm not looking for people, I don't need advice from people who agree with me. Like there's no value in that whatsoever.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for people that maybe they're pessimistic, or maybe I just know that they think, some way that, and I go to those people. But mostly I just give it time, and I let my gut just takes over. And the other thing though that I am doing is, like, if it's an idea, I keep going down the road of thinking and maybe taking a step one way or the other toward, I would need to do this. So I'll kind of dig into that a little. And usually the good ideas, those things fall into place, and you get momentum and you get comfortable and you get confident, or it kind of goes the other way. And when it does, I just recognize in that and say, like, I just made a big decision that I've worked on really hard for 6 weeks, a deal that I was going to do. It's contracted, it's under agreement, a lot of people involved. And this morning I nixed it. And I just have had a feeling about a few different times over the last 3 weeks. It's just something in my gut that I don't know. I can't put my finger on it, but I can't come to peace with it. And I came to a place where I had a deadline, and I nixed a deal that may have been a good deal, but I just give it time, and I kind of work through it and see if that goes well, and I go get advice. But if I don't get comfortable, I don't do a deal. If I don't ultimately have confidence and peace about it, I don't go through with it.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks for sharing that. So this is shifting gears just a little bit, but like in 2020, it's been, real clear that you've involved yourself and exerted your energy, your passion, your skill set into a couple of kind of high profile, projects, for lack of a better word. One was a congressman election, and the other was an issue at the city level. I'm just curious, like, how do you, and this is playing off a little bit about what I just asked, but I feel like this is different because it's kind of outside the scope of kind of your professional life, so to speak. But how do you make a decision to jump into really big issues, complex issues, that, just kind of from an outside perspective would almost seem like out of your lane? And so how do you process that, and like, why do you do those kinds of things?
Yeah. So before we went on the air, I was telling you about my feeling that focus is it's a big part of every inch of my life, and the ability to not just to be focused and not let distractions bother you, but to walk away from things that don't matter. So the beginning of my answer on that question is I have this belief, it comes from my faith, that when people have any kind of means, it may be money, it may be influence, it may be status, it may be whatever, that they have a responsibility to use that for right and good and to give back. And it's a bit of a philosophy about responsible stewardship. And so at this time in my life, because of some success we have, or some reputation we've gained, I feel like I have a voice in some places, and I feel like I have a responsibility to use that voice for right and for good. And so, one of those things was the congressional election that ultimately Ronnie Jackson won. I met him in a meeting completely unrelated to the election, had really no interest in the election. And when I met this guy, he was the underdog. He was behind by 20 points. No one thought he was going to win. I was so utterly impressed by him. And again, we never talked about the election. The whole meeting never came up. It was about another project that some guys that I knew were asking him to help us with because of his influence at the White House. And when I got through the meeting, I heard him talk and think, and I just thought, this is the kind of people we need to be a congressman. And it was kind of this principled moment, like, this guy needs to win this race and he needs somebody to help him, and I just got in it. This other thing that I got into, it was called Proposition A in Amarillo, just got decided in the last election. It was similar in that it was a plan that was raising taxes, the tax rate that the city could raise, they were raising it by 39%. And I felt like the plan, besides that being a lot of money, I didn't think it was a good plan. I thought it was going to fail. And it's an area of things that we know some about. It's our area of expertise. And I first went and tried to turn their minds, but they wouldn't. And so it was, again, that one was similar, but it was me saying, Amarillo taxpayers don't understand they're about to get hit for 39%. Most of them won't take the time to figure out if this is a good idea or not. And I knew that, and I felt like the plan wasn't good. And I literally just felt a responsibility to expend my resources and my influence. And so, but that essentially, while I made a few people in Amarillo mad, it was me feeling like I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to get involved in it. I knew I was going to make people mad, but I just felt like I had a responsibility to kind of to give back, because it was a moment that I could. And so it has to matter. Like, it's not like, let's see what way the wind's blowing today. It has to matter. And it needs to be some principled issue. And then besides that, there's 1,000 things every day I don't do. Like, there's really not many, but it's true. When we pick one, we're kind of all in.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. You mentioned, relationships. Like, what have you learned about, man, I could ask this in so many ways, but how do you manage relationships when, let me give more context to my question. We live in a hyper, souped up culture. It's like every single issue is, 50-50, and you either love it or you hate it. And there's really kind of no in the middle. And so, like, how do you approach these things? How do you try to manage and maintain and nurture relationships while still being principled? And like, what is your advice? Because all of us face this in different ways, where we find ourselves on the opposite end of a spectrum from someone that we're supposed to be good neighbors to and friends with and things like that. And so how do you, when you dive into these things, how do you still try to stay focused on people who, because people are more important than issues, right? And so just interact with that, and what's been your experience, and how do you think about it, and how do you repair relationships that are damaged through the course of things like this?
Yeah. Oh, it's such a good question. And I will say this part it's been a really tough awakening for me. It's really true. When you disagree with people, you find out, kind of who your friends are. So the first thing is you have to just remember that relationships are the priority. Mm-hmm. And like, you just can't forget that when people who you thought were your friends start shooting arrows at you or saying things that you think are false, you just want to go to the other side and just, you just want to attack them.
Yeah.
And so you just got to keep remembering that's priority. And you do that all the way through. Like, I've gone after the election, I went back to a group of people in a couple different ways and said, hey, this is over. Like, we should come together, be collaborative. That was met largely with a little bit of a go to hell response. But today I'm working on still rebuilding those. And some of those people, they come around, and like there's a guy in Amarillo who's really well known, and he was as mad as anybody in town at me. But I let the thing happen, and I let it die down, and I've gone back to him, and he's just proven to be a great friend. He still disagrees with me. Of course, he doesn't know what I'm ultimately going to do in the end, and he will agree with me in the end because he just can't see it yet, but he will. But you just go back. But what I've learned is you have to be prepared to know that some people, they don't have tolerance for you to disagree with them.
Yeah.
And when you do, you become their enemy, and you kind of have to accept it, and it's kind of sad. But I still am optimistic, and I think some of these people are mad. I think I'm not going to quit trying to be their friend, and I'm not too proud to think, okay, see you later. Like I intend to heal those. Some come fast, some take longer, some maybe never will happen. But if that's your priority, you just kind of never give up, and you keep working.
That's good. Thanks for sharing all that. And thanks for being honest. I mean, one of the things I really appreciate about you is, you're not trying to wax on, wax off, it's just like, it's all here, and, it some's good, some's tough. And so thanks for your honesty and transparency there. What's your, just a couple more questions for you, and then I'll let you go. But what's your kind of assessment on leadership in general? We've had a lot of cultural moments this year, whether it be on local levels, state levels, the national level. You have the pandemic, you have the economic crisis that came with it, you have the presidential election. So we've kind of experienced a lot in a short period of time. And I'm just curious at kind of like what your overall assessment of just leadership in general on kind of all levels of society. Like, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think good, healthy leadership is the shortest resource we have on the planet. I've said a few times that if having this pandemic is the worst thing that's happened to the world in my life, it happening during a presidential election was the second worst thing, because the leadership that we needed, it was always jaundiced with, I got to run for re-election in 8 months or 10 months or 11 months. And so people didn't always make the absolute most unselfish best decision. It was always watered down with, how's this going to look? And frankly, you have another side just attacking whatever you do. So it was all so political. And so we didn't handle the pandemic that well. But healthy leadership wakes up every day saying, I'm doing the right thing for everybody else, no matter what it costs me. I had somebody push back against what I want to do next in Amarillo with the downtown project, because I want to put something on the ballot in May. Well, city politicians don't want to put bond elections to spend money on the same ballot at the time they're running. And my answer to that is, how dare you? Like, if you're unwilling to do the right thing at the right time just so you can stay in there, like, why be in there? Like, you're not doing anything just so you can stay in there. That's not great leadership. And so I just think, and listen, I wake up a lot of days too. I'm selfish and I don't do the right thing, and I'm not as good a leader that day. Like, it's not like we have some perfect people and like we're all imperfect, but leadership is the most scarce resource, in my opinion, in the relational planet. And I think it's showing, like that point is showing in our world right now.
Yeah, it's really good. What's your encouragement and challenge to leaders? I mean, when you think about how critical leaders are, and when you think of the shortage and just how desperate kind of all levels of society are for really great leaders. I mean, if there's a leader listening to this podcast and, you could really challenge them on a couple of levels, like what would you say? Like, what would
I
your
would
challenge
say,
them
this
be?
is so simple. I would say be unselfish and be humble. Like if you're unselfish, then you will just be focused on the mission. Like, the only thing that matters every day is the mission and your people and their well-being. And that requires some humility. Like, you can't always get the credit. You can't always be the guy there, with the trophy. Like, wake up every day and be humble and be unself. Think about your clients. Think about the people beside you. Think about the people who work for you. We call that in our company, we call it being outward. Like, being at everything you do, think about how does it affect the people I work with, the people I work for, the people who work for me, my clients. And then that, just when you get off of yourself, then you can get on the mission. And we wake up every day thinking about the mission and taking care of each other. And I don't get it right every day, but if no matter what level you lead, if you're the president of the most powerful country in the world, or you're just some guy in Amarillo like me, or somewhere in between, or you're leading your kids, I would just say be humble and be unselfish. And that's going to allow you to that's the most crucial things to becoming a good leader.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Alex, I really admire you. Thank you for giving your time and for always letting me ask questions and learn from you. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me.
No, you're great. I'm happy to do this because I have the same level of respect. Okay, really. You've been incredible for us and our projects and our rushes and all that stuff. So, I always will have time, even when it's not on the air.